First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you very much for joining us here. We are live streaming from the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. This is something that we do every weekday. In case you've never seen us before, that's what we do. We get to have longer form conversations, do a little bit of deeper dives on all kinds of different topics. But today we are talking about recycling, something that actually we've covered quite a bit here on this show. But this is something new, and I want to make sure that I get it right. It is the Plastic Pollution and Recycling Modernization Act. I do not have that memorized yet, but this is important because it actually goes into effect today, July 1st, 2025. And there's a number of different things that are going to be associated with that could change access to recycling in rural areas, could change how people recycle in the Portland area, but also it involves brands and businesses getting involved to help facilitate a lot of that recycling. So that's a lot of information I just put out there. We're going to be discussing this in a more robust way with the experts joining us right now from the Oregon DEQ. We have Ariane Sperry, we have Katie Romano. Thank you to both of you, for joining us. And if you don't mind, could you let everybody know, what your title is there at the organization? Katie, maybe we can start with you and then Ariane.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Katie Romano, and I am the Communications and Outreach Specialist for the Materials Management Program with Oregon DEQ. So I get to work with the RMA team as well as some other programs.
And I'm Ariane Sperry, and I am implementation lead for the Recycling Modernization Act here at DEQ.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for being here with us. There's a lot here that people are really curious and interested to find out more about this. And just to know, I think the basics to get started, could you tell us about this act and maybe what precipitated it, what it was that really got this going to begin with and what it's all about?
Yeah, sure. The basis for the act really came from a lot of different things. Oregon's been a leader in the recycling realm for a long time, starting with the bottle bill in 1971. And as we've moved, our program has evolved, products have evolved, and we've discovered that recycling is really dependent on the global marketplace. And in 2017, there were international disruptions in recycling markets globally that really led us to take a closer look at some of the issues that had been facing recycling for a long time. So there was unequal access to recycling opportunities depending on where you lived or worked in Oregon. And there was the ups and downs of the prices of recycling. There were high costs to transport recyclables from rural areas. And there was concern from consumers, from residents and businesses that the recycling, what was happening to Oregon's recycling. And we began to have a growing awareness of sending our material around the world. We didn't really have a line of sight into where our recycling ended up. And so Oregon community members and industry partners came together with Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, leading a conversation to develop a consensus framework that ultimately became a new law called the Plastic Pollution and Recycling Modernization Act. And that act was passed in 2021, and we've been working together with many interest holders for several years now to establish all of the rules and how the program will work. And so now the new program takes effect today. And I can talk through a little bit more about that if you want.
Yeah, that would be great. So, all this hard work that's been going on, to put this all into place, going into effect today on July 1st, 2025. So what are some of the major things that this is going to change when it comes to recycling in Oregon?
Yeah. So it's the Recycling Modernization Act is a comprehensive update to Oregon's recycling system. It expands recycling opportunities in communities throughout the state. It upgrades the facilities that sort our recycling. And it also establishes accountability mechanisms to ensure that the materials that you put in your recycling bin are recycled and are recycled responsibly. And the funding for the program is through fees that are paid by companies that sell packaging, paper, and food service ware into Oregon.
So when we're talking about that funding side of things, so they're going to be paying these companies. Say it's a company that makes some kind of a drink or whatever that comes in a bottle that can be recycled. So they're going to be paying into the system if they're selling that in Oregon. Is that how that works?
That's right. They will pay a fee based on how much of the material that they sell into the state.
Gotcha. And so that's going to help fund some of these expansions and some of the expanded ways that recycling can happen. I know there's a few different ways this is going to change some things for people. To focus on the rural side of things, for a lot of people in rural communities, recycling is a lot more difficult. It can be difficult for individuals. Is this going to change that for a number of people and make that something that's more accessible for them?
Yeah. So what happens today is that the companies that are obligated under this new law will start to pay fees to an organization called Circular Action Alliance they have a job of distributing funds throughout the state to expand recycling opportunities and make investments in recycling facilities. So that funding will start to flow later this summer to communities and facilities around the state. And some of that funding can go toward, as I said, investments in new equipment into the facilities, and also for transportation costs when recyclables need to go long distances, either to a sorting facility or to an end market ultimately. Some of the other benefits will be a more consistent list of recyclable materials across Oregon. It'll take some time for that list to be consistent as communities kind of ramp up and new programs come online. There'll also be a set of collection sites for some additional materials that can be hard to sort at recycling facilities, but have recycling opportunities. For example, plastic bags. There'll be new collection sites for those types of materials.
Nice. So yeah, expanding different ways, that people can take that instead of that going into a landfill. That can be something that can be recycled easier. It sounds like.
Yeah, there'll be drop-off sites around the state.
And looking at some of those different changes too, expanding some of those different things that can be recycled. Let me just ask that question. So will this expand some of the different items that can be recycled when it comes down to it?
Yeah, so as I said, right now there's a lot of almost every community has a different list of materials that can be recycled. And moving forward, there'll be kind of a consistent list throughout the state. And in most cases, it will be an expanded list. Some places that already have really robust recycling lists, like the Portland metro area, there will be some materials that might be added and some materials that might be coming off the list. In general, the list that has been established is fairly similar to the list that's currently accepted in the Portland metro area. But a lot of places around the state have a much shorter list, so they'll be seeing a lot of changes.
That's great. Yeah. So more opportunities to recycle and to get those things into that system. Talking about the Portland side of things and just the metro area, that does have that robust list. What are some of the major changes that people in the metro area are going to see when it comes to their recycling?
Yeah, so they'll be able to include paperback books, I think, for the first time. And also, if they have pizza boxes that are don't have food on them, they can put those into the recycling as well.
Nice. So something that's definitely different when it comes down to that. What are some of the other major things that you think people should be aware of when it comes to the Plastic Pollution and Recycling Modernization Act?
I think just paying attention because these changes are going to roll out over time. And So each community is going to figure out what timing works best in terms of making the change and making the investments that they need to make. And so paying attention to what is accepted in your community, I think that's probably the best approach.
Best approach, yeah. So as you mentioned, so that's each community is going to be making those decisions on when things are implemented. So follow along with, I'm sure, whatever those local guidelines are. It sounds like would be the best thing that somebody at home could be doing right now if they're wondering, has anything changed in my area?
Yeah.
And for some of that funding that you mentioned, for some of these brands and different organizations that are going to be paying into that, just to get that timeline again, how long do you think it'll be before some of that funding starts making its way to some of these different organizations and communities to start making their own decisions on the recycling facilities and how that money needs to be spent?
Yeah, so the funding starts to flow in late summer to the facilities, local governments, garbage and recycling collection companies that are all going to be making these changes. There'll be new education, new information and resources that will go out to customers. So customers will start to see. There'll also be statewide campaigns that will be shared broadly throughout the state. So there'll be a lot more information that will be coming over the next probably 6 months. Folks will start to see that and hear more about it and get a lot more details and information.
And I don't know if this information is out there yet or not, but I'll ask, and if you don't have the answer, you don't have the answer. But when it comes down to like what companies are paying, say it's a bottle of water, whatever it may be, is there a set amount that they're going to pay per item to then contribute into this system? Or is that established as far as how that's going to work?
Yes. So the Producer Responsibility Organization, it's called Circular Action Alliance, has established a fee schedule. And it's by the type of material that the paper, the packaging, whatever type of material it is, on a per ton basis. However much they sell into the state, that is how much they will, the manufacturers, the brands will have to pay.
Gotcha. So it's calculated out like that by material, by type of material, excuse me, and then also by the amount of material or the amount that's being sold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, for people who want to find out more about some of these changes and about some of the things that are happening with this, what's the best place for them to go to follow along and get a good idea of the overview, but also follow up for their own communities as well?
Yeah, you can definitely follow Oregon DEQ. We've got a website that I linked with you, Greg, and we can definitely share that out. Recyclingact.oregon.gov is our shorthand link to that, so you can follow along and get lots of information from the DEQ side of things. And then, as Ariane mentioned, we've got a Circular Action Alliance is going to be, I think they have a portal that is live now for education and outreach resources. So there will be some really great information that folks can access through that as well.
All right. Well, we're always seeing this recycling system here in Oregon expand and change. And so it sounds like this is going to have some benefits there for a lot of people as far as what they can recycle and how that all works. So thank you very much for both of you, for joining us today to talk about that and to go through this information and get it out there. And I will try to memorize it: Plastic Pollution and Recycling Modernization Act. But regardless, the bottom line is what it changes. So thank you so much for both of you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And for everybody watching, we are live streaming here, so this segment was live. But if you're watching after the fact, that's great too. You could do that on the Fox 12 Oregon app and or the website or YouTube, wherever you find us. Wherever you're watching me right now, thanks for doing so. And feel free to share these segments or send us an email, fox12now@kptv.com. If you have questions or there's another segment that you want to do a deeper dive on, find out more about, feel free to send me that and I'll see what we can do. That's it for right now. I'll talk to you